SuiteScript is a JavaScript-based programming language used to extend and customize the capabilities of NetSuite. So SuiteScript is like a superhero for NetSuite. It has the power to automate tasks. Yes, we're gonna speak about JavaScript. If you guys are familiar with JavaScript, you can skip this part. Variables are like a container used to store the information. It can store any kind of information like strings, numbers. So there are three different types of variables. One is var, the second one is let, the third one is constant. To talk about var and let, these both are actually equal. There are very minor differences. So var is a kind of older version of JavaScript variable. Let is the latest version of variable in JavaScript. So let's talk about constant. Constant keyword is used in JavaScript to declare a variable. Whenever we declare a variable using this constant keyword, the values are always fixed. We cannot change the values later. Now let's try to declare variables using var keyword. Now let's take an example of declaring a variable in JavaScript. So in order to do that, we're gonna use var keyword and we'll provide a meaningful name for this variable called as superhero1 name, and we will initialize the value with Captain America. Now we have successfully declared our first variable. You can check the value in this variable name. To do that, I'm gonna type my variable name, superhero1 name. The moment I type, I can see the execution happening. So I'll just click enter now. So this particular variable name is storing the value called as Captain America. So in the same way, now let's try to create another variable called a superhero2 using a let keyword. Now let's try to create another variable using constant keyword. Now if I try to change value of this particular weapon, let's say I'm going to replace Mjolnir with a gun. Now you can see I'm not able to change the value. There are different types of data types in JavaScript. So one of the data type in JavaScript is string. To declare a string kind of data type, we can provide the value in double quotes or even in single quotes. I'm going to provide in double quotes. The next data type which we're gonna see is number. Number can be any value. It can be a negative value or zero, a positive value. So right now I'll set zero value to this number. The next data type which we're gonna see is Boolean. So Boolean contains two different types of value. One is true and the other one is false. So to declare a Boolean value, let's create a variable with some name. Let's say, or let's name it as stores value. Now I will create another variable which stores false value. What are arrays? To explain arrays, let me go back to what I explained so far. Like for example, to create any variable, we use var keyword and provide a name using this value called Iron Man. And if you want to store any numbers, we will create some kind of name for that and we'll store the number in that variable. So what if there is an option where you can create one single variable and that stores all different types of data in a single variable itself? So that is where the array comes into picture. So now let's try to declare a variable called array, and I will provide some meaningful name. Now to declare array in JavaScript, we use these two square brackets and click enter. Right now this does not contain any data, completely empty, does not have any values. To store any values, we can do it in two different ways. One, the moment we declare this variable called array name, we can provide the values then and there itself. For example, let's say I want to store the name And let's say I want to store the age or number. And in the same way, if I want to store another array value, I can just provide something like this, which has some value in it. So right now you can see there are 3 different values: string, number, and it also contains another array. Maybe we can add one more data type, which is a Boolean value, or even you can pass some null and empty string as well. Statements. Whenever you declare any variable, like right now, if you see, we have declared a variable using let keyword. We have provided a name called Ironman. So this line called as statement or instructions in JavaScript. So in the same way, I have declared multiple statements. So these are all called as statements. So what is the semicolon? So this semicolon is actually used to terminate this particular line or particular statement so that JavaScript can distinguish between these two statements. Functions. What are functions in JavaScript? Functions are like a group of statements or set of statements which can be used to perform a particular task. So for example, here I am trying to add up these two values and store it in a variable called sum. So in short, function is like kind of when you click on a subscribe button, it automatically gets subscribed, right, in a YouTube. So in the same way, you can create your own function. So to create your own function, JavaScript, use a keyword called function and provide some meaningful name. I will name it as addition and provide a parenthesis, start with flower basis and end with flower basis. So now we have created a function. This function is not performing any kind of task. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place these statements inside my addition function. So make sure you don't provide any space between this name and the basis. Comments. What are comments in JavaScript? Comments are used to provide some kind of meaningful information about the code. For example, if you have to declare any comment in JavaScript, there are 2 different types of comments. Single line comment. Single line comment can be done by providing a symbols like 2/ and then start writing the comments. Now there is another comment called as multi-line comment. So which is like you can provide comments on multiple lines. So for that, the syntax uses /* and then click on enter, then again asterisk, then /. So within this block, you can add multiple line of comments. Return. So in JavaScript, there is a keyword called return. This is usually used to return some results back to the calling function. So for example, I am summing up x and y value. So I will be returning this sum as a result. Now we have this addition function. Now we'll try to execute this addition function. So what I'm going to do is execute this particular function in a browser console. But if you see, it has not executed and it has not returned me the sum of value, which is 3. In JavaScript, if you have to call this addition function, you have to use this particular function name. For example, addition parenthesis semicolon. Oh, there is a error now. The reason behind this error is it's because of case sensitive issues. The function name which we have provided is capital A and the function name we called here is smaller a. So we will try to recall the function with a proper name. So right now, if you see, function has returned me the output as 3. So this return statement is used to return the results of this particular function. Now we have not storing this value anywhere. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to declare another variable called, and I'm going to store the addition value. Let's say I'm going to call this addition function, and I would like to store this value written by this addition function, the total variable. Now let's try to take the value of total. Now we can see the value of total is. Now let me try to call this function again one more time, where sum equal to addition, and let me check the value of sum now. Again 3. It's always constant because we have set the value as 1 and 2. That is the reason we are getting this return value as always 3. So how can we dynamically pass the value to perform the addition of? So what you can do is this function can accept the values within this parenthesis. So how to call this addition function using the parenthesis? Now let's reframe our code. So let's say this addition function accepts two values, which is value 1 and another value by value 2. So usually the number of arguments are usually separated by comma. Now let's try to store this value 1 in the variable called x, and we'll try to store the value 2 in a variable called y. Now once it sums up, the values are stored in sum and it is finally returned. Now let's try to copy this code and let's go back to our console. Paste this function. Now I have declared this addition function again, which can accept two different values. So let me try to call this function again now.
Oh shit, here we go again.
Total equal to. Now I'm going to pass values, let's say 3 and 4. Now if I try to print total value, I can see the value returned is 7. Now even if I try to perform or pass a different value for the addition, let's say 4 and 2. There are some predefined functions in JavaScript. So one of the predefined function is alert function, which actually provides a pop-up in front of the user. For example, if I call this alert function by passing some message. Now if I click enter on this, we can say this a pop-up message which says Avengers Assemble. Objects. To explain objects in JavaScript in a shorter way, let's assume there is a person and the person has some name, the person has some age, some kind of characteristics and all those stuff, right? We can create object by using a two flower braces, something like this, and we can provide some meaningful name for this particular object. So I will create another object which will have some properties of the person. And to declare object, we will use these two flower braces and I'll click on enter in between. So usually object will have two things. One is called as key and the other one is called as value. For naming purpose or the terminology purpose, they call it as key and a value pair. So these two are together called as property. I'm going to create a name. So this is a key for this object and the value is, let's say, John. And I want to add another key called age, and I will provide the age as 23. So in the same way, we can also create or use functions within these objects. For example, let me create a function name called call alert. Usually key value pairs are separated by colon in objects. So in the same way, I will separate this key and value pair by colon. So I will create a function. So here is the function now. I have created a custom function called alert custom functions. Now what I'm going to do is I will call the standard default alert function where I will pass a message. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to execute this in my console. So right now I'll just click enter. Now the person object 2 has been declared successfully. So if I click enter, I can see this has a key called name and the value as John, and another key called age, the value as 23. And you can see there is a call alert function. Now I have the person object 2 created. this particular person object has been created. Now, how can I access the values like name, age, call, alert, everything? So as I mentioned before, we can use alert and pass any value here and call this. It will show us and pop up. The same way, I will do alert. To access the properties of this object, we usually use dot operator, or we can use a brackets, square brackets, and inside that we have to provide the, for example, so if I want to fetch the name of this object, so I will copy the name and I will put it within this square brackets as a string, and then I will just close this and I will click here. Now I can see a pop-up appeared with the name John. So the other way to access is I can do person object dot age. It gives me the age. On the other hand, I have also created another key called call alert, which holds the value as function. So I will try to call this function from this object. Right now you can see there is a pop-up coming up here which shows done. To get started with SuiteScript structure, so I'm going to create a small function and I'll be providing a name as my first script. So I will just write two set of code, which is a message which displays as this is my first script, and I would like to show this message in an alert box. And I call this alert function, the message will get displayed in the screen as a pop-up. So now we're gonna see how to execute this function in NetSuite. So once you have successfully saved this file in a JavaScript format, the next step is to upload it in the NetSuite account. So I have already logged into NetSuite account. To upload this file in NetSuite account, navigate to Documents, Files, and then SuiteScripts. Click on SuiteScripts, and then you can click on Add File button, which will show you a pop-up to select your file. I'll be selecting my file and I will be uploading this file here. Right now I have uploaded my JavaScript local file in NetSuite. So now let's see how to execute this SuiteScript1.js file in NetSuite. So to do that, navigate to Customization, Scripting, and Scripts, click on New. So it's asking us to upload the script file. We have already uploaded the script file. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna select our file, which is SuiteScript1.js, and we'll click on Create Script Record. Now, if you observe clearly, it has considered the script as the SuiteScript 1.0 version. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna select as a client script for this, and we're gonna provide a name for it. And let me click save on this. So once I've successfully saved, you guys can see that NetSuite has considered this as a client script, and the ID has been saved. We can see the name as well. And if you just scroll down, there is multiple options like page init, save record, validate field change, everything, right? So we want to make sure this code should be considered as a page init function, which is this particular function. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna copy this particular function name, and we're gonna click on edit, and then scroll down and paste this function name and page init function. So I'll just click on save. So once you are successfully saved, it doesn't mean that NetSuite is going to execute this script. Click on deploy, where you're gonna select on which particular record in NetSuite the script has to execute. I'm going to select customer, provide some ID on this, and I will leave the status as testing itself, and I will just save this. Now I have successfully saved the script deployment, and this has been applied on customer record. To create one customer record now, by navigating to list, relationships, customers, and I will click on new. The moment I click on new, I should be able to see my script getting executed. Here you go. So my first script has been executed on the customer record, and it is showing me a pop-up with a OK button as well. To start with SuiteScript version 2.2, I have created a similar kind of function, but the message says this is my second script in 2.2. Okay. Everything remains same. You all know what will happen if I upload this function. NetSuite will still recognize it as 1.2. So how do I convey to NetSuite that this is a SuiteScript version 2.2? To convey NetSuite that this is a SuiteScript version 2.2, I'm going to add some kind of comments to this file. In this comment, I'm going to mention that this particular API version is 2.2. So the SuiteScript version is nothing but 2.2. And in another tag, I'm going to mention the script type. The script type as line script. There are different script types, and there is another tag called as module scope. So I'll provide the module scope as public. So these are the three different tags where I'm going to tell NetSuite that this is a version 2.2 and the script type is line script. So in SuiteScript 2.2 or SuiteScript 2.1, these two tags are always mandatory, and this particular tag is not mandatory. It's an optional one. These are all called as JS doc tags. So it's like a script birth certificate telling NetSuite what version of SuiteScript we are using, what type of script this is, what scope this script is running in. Now let's see if I upload this code, whether my NetSuite gonna accept this particular JS file as a SuiteScript 2.0 version. So please save this file. I have already saved this file as SuiteScript2.js. So now I'm going to upload it to NetSuite. So to upload, as I said before, the navigations are document, files, and then click on SuiteScripts and just click on add file. When I selected my SuiteScript 2.0 file and I tried to upload, I got this particular error, which is SuiteScript 2.0 entry point scripts must implement one script type function. So what does this mean? In this particular code, NetSuite has recognized this particular script file as SuiteScript 2.2. So NetSuite is still expecting one particular script type function on this particular client script type so that it can recognize. I'm going to add a function called define function, and this define function accepts two parameters, an array of values. Usually this will store some kind of modules or some kind of library files, I would say. And another parameter is like callback function. You see, I have not provided any name for this function. So these are all called as a anonymous function or nameless function, I would say. So I'll just open the curly braces and I will click on end. And within this, we're going to add this particular function. So now that I have placed my function in this code, now I have set this particular function within this define. I'm going to return some value from this particular define. So I'm going to return. The value will be kind of in object-based structure. So this object will have property called as pageInit. PageInit key will be separated by colon, and a value will be my function name. Now let's see what happens if I upload this code back to NetSuite. As NetSuite expected, I have provided some basic, at least one entry point function, which is pageInit function here. I'll just click on go back. So once you click go back, and if this add file does not work properly, I would recommend to refresh this page. Click on add file and select your file one more time and upload that particular file now. Now let's try to create the script record for this particular script. So the same way, I'm going to navigate to customization, scripting, scripts, and I'll click on new. And I will select my file, SuiteScript.js, and I will click create script record. And I will provide the name, ID as well. And you can see NetSuite has already recognized the version as 2.2 and the type as client script. So I'm going to deploy this particular script directly from this page. I'll just click on deployments here. This is the second way how you can deploy this. So I'm just going to select as customer, and I will keep it in testing, and I will add, and I'll click on save. So now that I have successfully saved this, to execute this script, I will navigate to list, relationships, customers, and I will click on new. And you guys can see that my second script has been successfully triggered. So in short, to explain about this page init function, this page init function in client script usually gets triggered when this particular page gets loaded. For example, if I just navigate again, list, relationships, customers, and if I click on new, if you see it takes time and it starts initializing every single thing like forms, fields. At that point, I want my page init script to be triggered. So if you see right now, my page init script has triggered completely and you can see the output. So there are some rare scenarios where everything looks good, but sometimes the alert pop-up won't appear. So the issue could be mostly the cache issues in your browser. So what I would suggest to do is like make sure you clear your cache and cookies. And once you clear the data, redo the same step to execute. Now what we're gonna do is for this particular alert function or alert pop-up, this is completely native JavaScript alert pop-up. If you see the look and feel of this particular alert box, it is completely different to the NetSuite UI, right? I'm going to match this particular alert box to NetSuite UI. What NetSuite has done is they have already created some set of modules, which I could say is some kind of library files. We can load that particular library file or the module in this particular script, and we can replace this alert function from native JavaScript to NetSuite SuiteScript related alert function. So how to achieve this? I'm gonna pass a string which says n/UI/dialog. So this is one of the module called as dialog module, and I will give some reference in my function, which is like kind of passing some kind of parameter to this function. This name can be anything. It does not mean that you have to always use dialog. You can actually change this to any readable name, whichever you want. I will call this particular object by referring with dialog, and there is a function called alert, and this function accepts object as an input, so which has two properties. First property with title as a key, and the value will be, and another property message. So for this message, I would pass variable value. Let me comment this particular line of code because we're gonna use native NetSuite's dialog alert, and I will upload this file back to NetSuite file cabinet, and I will try to open or create a new customer. What we are expecting is our new dialog function to come up. Our new dialog function has been coming up. So this actually explains the complete SuiteScript structure or the SuiteScript coding style or the syntax, I would say.